Hi and welcome to the Digital Digging YouTube channel. In this video we're taking a look at the Westland Wyvern, both in history and in the game of War Thunder. And if you're patient enough to hang around until the very end, there'll be a little bit extra that didn't quite fit with the main narrative. The development of the Westland Wyvern was not a straightforward affair. Not only were the naval specifications exceedingly demanding, but a number of the components were of a pioneering nature, and although the word pioneering has a certain romantic luster, in the less than poetic field of engineering it simply means untested. And indeed everything about the Wyvern, as designed by John Digby and his team, seems a little unfamiliar, from its unusual shape, its twin four-bladed contra-rotating props, and the curious whine or whistle of the engine. The specification for a naval strike fighter was issued in 1944, one of the most desperate years of World War II, so the preliminary bidding competitions were dispensed with and the contract was handed straight to Westland, who eagerly accepted the challenge, though they hadn't produced any aircraft for the Navy since the Walrus in 1920. Although to head off any potential corrections to that statement, they did share in the manufacture of the Supermarine Seafire and the Fairey Barracuda, but were not involved in the design process. Initially, the idea was for a layout a little like the United States P-39, with the engine behind the pilot and the propeller shaft passing under the cockpit floor, on the understanding that this would enable the pilot to be ideally positioned to see over the nose for carrier operations. Although this version never materialised, the slope of the nose to achieve the same effect was retained and suggests, to my eye at least, something of the look of a dangerous marine animal. Although the Wyvern was primarily intended for the Fleet Air Arm Service, a deal of interest was also displayed by the RAF, and while prototypes were ordered by both services, the RAF decided that the jet would be dominating the future of aviation and quickly lost interest in the project. So onto the engine. This challenge, above all others, took the most effort to overcome. The first engine fitted was the Rolls-Royce Eagle 22 piston engine, to be replaced with a turboprop when such a beast became available. The Wyvern TF1 prototype was first taken into the air at Boscombe Down near Amesbury in Wiltshire on December 16, 1946. The following October, squadron leader Peter Garner was killed in this aircraft attempting an emergency landing after the propeller bearings failed. Before long, the Eagle engine was cancelled and two new engines were fitted to three prototypes, with one receiving the Rolls-Royce Clyde and the other two receiving the Armstrong Siddeley Python. After a mere 50 hours of flight, Westland decided against the Clyde and sent the aircraft to Napier & Son to act as a testbed for a Nomad turbo compound engine which, unfortunately or otherwise, never came into being. The Python, by default, became the engine of choice and it stayed with the Wyvern through all later versions, including the definitive S4, although it continued to be a little erratic in performance. It didn't, for instance, respond well to minor throttle adjustments, so was instead run at a constant speed, and the desired alterations in speed had to be brought about by varying the pitch of the remarkably distinctive 8 contra-rotating propellers. Additionally, as it entered operational service in 1954, 813 Squadron discovered that the Python had a worrying tendency to flame out when launched from an aircraft carrier, a role it was designed for. This resulted in a number of them ditching a short way off the deck. One of them was unlucky enough to be struck and cut in half by the HMS Albion, its parent craft, and provided the pilot, Lieutenant B.D. McFarlane, with the opportunity to enter the pages of history by successfully ejecting from his aircraft while he and it was underwater. Regardless of these problems, when it was in the air, the Wyvern could carry an impressive weight of arms. These included 4 20mm Hispano Mark V cannon, a centerline attachment rated at 2,000 pounds or 907 kilograms for torpedoes, bombs, mines or depth charges, and wing-mounted hardpoints for additional bombs or up to 16 6-pound or 27-kilogram rockets. The only time it was deployed in combat was in 1956 during the rather shabby affair that was the Suez Crisis. 830 Squadron flew 79 sorties from HMS Eagle, during which 2 of their Wyverns were downed by Egyptian light anti-aircraft fire, but both of the pilots were safely retrieved from the sea after ejecting from their damaged aircraft. Within 2 years, the bird had had its day, and by 1958, all Wyverns had been withdrawn from service, finally giving way to the inexorable rise of the jet engine. As a last gasp, it hadn't exactly disported itself with a flawless performance, but there was something undeniably attractive about this powerful and very individual-looking aircraft. In the game we have the S4, which is a premium only, so let's have a look at that first. The Wyvern will set you back €29.99, which translates into £23.64 or $33.88. For that you get the aircraft, obviously, with all the modules unlocked and the extra earning power of a premium vehicle. You also get 15 days of premium time and 1,000 golden eagles to play with. So realistically, this is birthday present territory unless your parents are feeling generous about you finishing your exams, or your significant other has decided you deserve a treat in return for some exemplary behaviour, or indeed you don't have a significant other and feel like treating yourself until the fine day when one comes along and considers you splendid enough to treat. It's inevitable. It will happen. It may have happened already. Anyway, back to the point. This is not a piffling price to pay for a creation which dwells only in a digital realm. You get no physical object for your money, something which, should it fall out of favour, could double up as a paperweight or a doorstop, or in fact grace the shelf of a local charity shop should you one day grow weary of it and decide to pass it on in a laudably generous manner. In short, this had better be worth it, but let's have a look at some of the statistics before we move on to the final verdict. The Westland Wyvern is a Tier 4 aircraft with a battle rating of 5.0. It's armed with 4 20mm Hispano Mark V cannon with 1,200 rounds of ammunition and a reload time of 40 seconds in arcade mode. It has a maximum speed of 403 miles per hour or 648 kilometers per hour at sea level and a turn time of 30.8 seconds. It can also carry up to 3,000 pounds or 1,360 kilos of bombs, 16 AP-1 rockets or 16 RP-3 rockets, an 18-inch Mark 15 torpedo or a combination of the last two. In realistic mode, the only change is a slightly longer turn time of 32.0 seconds, and of course the cannon don't reload themselves. So to answer the question, is it worth it? I have to say, yes it is. It's by far my favourite aircraft in patch 1.59, although the German premium HE219A7 squeaks in at a surprise second place, so maybe I'll review that one in the next video. I've been waiting for the Wyvern for a long time and was prepared for disappointment, only to find my quiet and patient enthusiasm for the release of the aircraft was well rewarded. This is a belter. It works well in its role as a strike fighter, torpedo bomber, and for that matter, straight fighter. The 4 Hispanos don't disappoint, and though its speed is relatively low, I think you'll find its manoeuvrability is a pleasant surprise. The truth of the matter is I have an extremely soft spot for Westland and indeed the Wyvern, and I was going to get my hands on this at any price. The bonus turned out to be that it was entirely worth it. Is it going to be worth it for you? Well, only you can decide that. Have a look at some videos, take it for a test flight, and mull it over in your own good time. I tell you something else that would be completely worth introducing to War Thunder. The Westland Lysander. Splendid aircraft should anyone from Gaijin be looking for a project. Okay, well that's almost it for another video, but as I said at the beginning, I'm introducing a new feature called the Get to the End of the Video bonus, and here's the first one. The Wyvern of mythology is a winged creature with 2 legs and the head of a dragon, a creature with which it is often erroneously confused, the 2 animals in fact being entirely separate species, albeit both completely made up. The name comes from the Middle English word wyver, which is from the Old French vivre, which is itself derived from the Latin vipera, a word which refers to a number of venomous snakes. A golden wyvern was said to have been the symbol of the medieval kingdom of Wessex, which is presumably why it was chosen by Westland Aircraft, as their base at Yeovil falls into this large and somewhat nebulous former region. The fact that the Wyvern aircraft housed a Python engine is enjoyably ironic, given that it is a famously non-venomous snake. And incidentally, the Python was the final form of an engine design that Alan Arnold Griffith had been working on since 1925. Right then, I hope you enjoyed that and that I'll be seeing you for the next one. So cheerio chaps and chapesses, take care of each other and yourselves. Bye bye.